Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
You find yourself in a tavern.
Yo, we should have checked for traps.
I knew he forgot something.
I think I can reason with him.
You killed his father.
Can I have sex with it?
You could certainly try.
I'm gonna touch a sword.
Don't touch the sword!
The child is evil, right?
Obviously.
I could cast Fireball.
Always cast fireball.
All right, roll for it. Welcome to Friday Night Quests. I'm your host and DM, Jay Jones. We're back with the bonus Aftermath episode to Season 11, our adventure with Daniel Fernandez. First, we'll talk to the cast about the adventure and discuss the differences between being a player and being a dungeon master. Then we'll sit down with the producers and talk about the design of this adventure. So without further ado, let's get to our conversation with the cast.
I mean, you know, I'd like to have those hill giants rise up at some point, but those guys might be jerks too.
Who knows? Find out repercussions of that later on.
We might have put the virus in his head.
Yeah, you also put the idea that if he closes his eyes, nothing exists. I really don't think.
Oh, yeah.
You guys left that kingdom in quite an interesting
It's okay,
situation.
we'll find out in 20 years. I don't know how it works.
When they come through the portal?
Yeah, we'll see.
They'll have to make decisions pretty quickly.
It's more likely that we'll go to the Feywild than some other adventure, and
Yeah.
it'll just be ruined.
Yeah.
Wow, all right,
Yeah, I wonder
guys.
what that beast is.
Well,
Oh,
move
well.
slower there, though. Or no, faster.
Faster.
For them, it's slower.
It's all timey-wimey, don't worry about it.
It's true.
So it could be like, we could go back in, it's like the moment we left.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about we don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Time.
Well, good game, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah.
Thanks for playing, man.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, and Daniel, this is not your first time playing D&D.
No, I taught Mike how to play D&D. To be
That's
perfectly
true.
honest.
This
Yeah.
is a very interesting moment to have the master.
I believe when I first invited Mike to play D&D, when we were working on characters together, Mike was my roommate at the time, he said, no, I don't really want to do that.
I've talked about this before.
What?
When he invited me to play D&D, I openly scoffed. I was like, no, that's okay. And then they suckered me in, and I played a swashbuckler named Calvin Newgray who got knocked out a bunch of times.
Literally the first fight you got into, you got knocked out by an ogre.
Yeah.
now,
So getting killed all the time is in his blood.
now, Daniel, I know you do game mastering for us on the other Roll to Seize podcast, but do you typically are in the dungeon master role when you play D&D?
That's usually my favorite thing to do. I kind of, if I was maybe a little overly enthusiastic as a player, it's because I never get to do it. So I wanted to try a million different things.
Yeah.
That's why I was the weird wrestler character.
I love that.
Yeah, I love being a game master. I run all sorts of different systems. I've been running Mike's been in my group on and off for a long time. And
Since college, yeah.
Since college, yeah. And right now I'm running a Star Wars game, Edge of the Empire, which is pretty cool. And that's sort of wrapping up maybe. And I'm also got a pretty cool Dungeon World campaign going on. Folks, if you've not played Dungeon World, you got to check out Dungeon World.
Check it out.
Yes.
And everybody here, has everybody at some point been a game master or dungeon master, or has anyone not? Kelly, have you ever been?
I have not, no.
And you enjoy playing the character more than running the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah.
I like playing the characters. I actually starting another D&D game tomorrow. This is literally back-to-back D&D weekend.
Wow. It's a D&D weekend.
I'm hosting ladies D&D.
Got
That's
a new
awesome.
character. Her name is Ver the Kid. But I've always liked the characters. I've been like actually thinking of the idea of like I wanted to play a man.
Cool.
But I'm like, how do I go about? In a podcast setting, that would be a little bit weird if you just keep hearing like a female voice. But it's like, but I'm a dude. Unless they
Just
do
to
like a dude
reiterate,
voice.
I'm a dude.
I'm a dude.
I believe in the campaign I'm in that Mike was running. I was playing a woman for quite a while, and everyone just called me he all the time.
Yeah,
because
right.
It's an easy mistake to make.
You were correct. Yeah, we were constantly making that mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to roleplay a Sirius Black. That's like always my dream. But I like to play the characters rather than play God.
Yeah.
Hey.
And then what's your character in the new
Ver the Kid is, well, I don't, Jeremy here's our
Is it Dungeons and Dragons or is it Pathfinder?
It's Pathfinder.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I don't know what her class, but her backstory is.
She's going to be, I think, like a dark cleric. Like
Yeah.
Ooh.
So part of my campaign, you design your own god.
Sick.
Yeah, you design the god you worship.
So she was, doesn't know who her parents are. She was raised in a monastery by like some stern but kind priestesses. And with like about 12 other kids, some stayed, some didn't. She didn't. She stuck around and started to see like the fray is at the edge of this monastery, then really it's a big cover to a larger guild of ancient assassins.
Yeah, so
Ooh.
she's like an assassin priest.
Awesome.
Yeah, watch out for Templars.
Yeah.
And try jumping off ledges and going into hay. It works very well for assassins.
And if you find yourself in a young man's mind, like hundreds of years in the future, ignore that part of the story. It's stupid.
Yeah.
That part gets very confusing.
You guys, I think that was my favorite part of the story, but that's either here nor
Michael
there.
Fassbender will explain it to us in
Yeah.
about a year or
Finally.
something.
I've kind
Finally.
of-
Michael
yeah.
Fassbender, please explain this to us.
Actually, my
tell me
visual
what happened.
inspiration comes from Ragnarok. Remember that game?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like the priestess with like the huge slit.
yeah.
Yeah, like
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Wait, are you telling me that in a fantasy RPG there was someone who's got like a huge slit on her clothes?
She's dressed like
That's
a
impossible.
nun, like
Crazy.
very good, but like of course like a low cut top, and her
As you do.
maxi dress just slits all the way up to
Of
like
course.
the top of her thigh on both
That's more protection in a fantasy world. The
Yeah.
more sexy.
Oh,
you
Yeah,
are.
the more skin you show, your
Yeah.
higher your AC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's why
natural.
parents die all the time, is because they have to dress like normal people.
Yeah.
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 It's fatal.
Yeah.
Like-
Just like I can't do it like I used to. I can't wear just that bikini into battle. I gotta wear this.
Because no women in fantasies have ever died for any other reason.
No,
No.
never.
Izzy wears a leather bikini.
Well,
Yeah.
I realized in looking in the armor class and looking at like my druid skills and what I do, I don't need that. I have magic.
You're gonna go naked?
And well, I just was like,
you don't
fuck
even
it.
need your leather bikini.
I'm a hippie. Why not? It's supernatural. Who wanted to get naked right away? Sweeney got to get naked this
That's true.
episode.
That's true.
I was all for it.
Yeah. And I just want to put this out there. I am sure you have other guests lined up, and it would be really boring to have me back right away. But you let me know if you ever need the Maniac to come back. because
Another wrestler.
Totally.
No, I think it would be the
Oh
Maniac.
no, it would be the
again.
Maniac. It would be the Maniac.
It would not be. It would not be another.
No, I know.
wrestler.
No.
I mean, unless I'm
That
the
would be
castle freak.
that would be
No,
very
that's
confusing.
Gormo. I can't be Gormo.
Yeah, who actually plays Gormo in the Adventures of Gormo?
Jay,
Oh, I do.
Oh yeah, so you're a castle freak.
So I'm castle freak now.
it makes
could
sense.
come
He is a
back.
barbarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an amazing retroactive story note that you added in.
By
That he
the
was
way,
once a
I'm
pro
just going to
wrestler
throw
for a while.
I'm just going to throw this out there. Podcast fans, every time I've appeared and done any sort of D&D stuff, I've been dropping references to famous podcasters and all my character names and stuff. Look for those names.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little Easter egg that maybe two of you are going to get.
Interesting.
I enjoy myself
In the Roll the Seas ones as well.
in the Roll of Cease ones as well. Yeah.
Check those out.
Podcasters, I've been trying to make dick jokes the entire time.
No one has ever noticed.
See if you can spot the
See if you can
references.
spot
like
that.
Inception.
Oh, and
I
guys,
listen
I
to
don't know.
this
If,
Friday Night Quest podcast and I just think about dicks all the time. I don't know why.
oh, and I don't know if anybody missed this. The subtext was pretty deep there. But when we were talking about writing,
Reading and writing.
yeah, that was fucking.
Oh yeah.
What? That's what happened?
Yeah.
Maniac, I've told you, I'm just not interested.
Sweeney was getting a lot of mixed signals in that adventure.
You know, I didn't even address I forgot to address the fact that you had made that excuse. I don't think that Prince Horace Kemp knew you were faking people out by saying you were too attracted to me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to address that next time.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Some subtext between Horace
Yeah.
and Sweeney.
Yeah.
And Mike and Jeremy, you guys are both DMs. What do you guys prefer? Do you guys prefer playing the character or DMing the game? Would you say if you had to pick?
You know, playing is way less exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just thinking.
And it's exhausting. There's so much work and preparation to put into it.
Yeah.
So
There's a bit, yeah.
it's incredibly rewarding to see players like have a great time.
Yeah.
It's like that's one of the I don't think being a player actually ever gets as good as that. But it's so much easier to be a player.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
was
so
thinking that
nice.
too.
It's so nice to like kick back and go like, let the DM do all the work. I just want to be the guy who like throws wrenches in his story.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Oh,
like
you
to
think
do.
you're guiding me this way?
Yeah.
No. I'm going this way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Mike? Do you prefer playing?
Well, I feel the same way in that like there is something really rewarding about being a DM. It's why I'm doing it for 3 different groups. But it's also like I could also not maybe do it for one of those groups for a while, and I'd be fine.
Probably be okay.
Like if I handed over the reins, I'd just like, all right, cool, enjoy.
To be perfectly honest, like I feel like I get my fill of being a character. Like, I mean, I'm probably good for a while. I mean, I actually play in a group, but even then, like, I just want a game master like all the time. I want to be the dungeon master. I've got like a million stories in my head that I want to tell, and those stories are mostly ripping off other stories and changing the names around and stuff. But it just it's so fun.
One of our stories should be we all get really, really high and want to go get a specific type of kebab in like three towns over.
Why don't we just do that in real life?
And the
You guys can get really
just
high
a Harold
then
and
search for
Kumar
kebabs.
adventure.
Let's go to White Castle. And the town should be White Castle.
Yeah, it's an actual White Castle.
They have the best kebab.
I will say this,
there.
though. There is one thing about being a player that I find to be really rewarding, which is like you really start to take ownership of that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you start to care about the character. Like as a DM, like it's all throwaways.
Right.
Except for your players, but like you're never the one like biting your nails going, am I going to live? Because
That's true.
As a DM, sometimes you're like, you want your players to succeed in the end. There's different philosophies on that. Some people are like, as a DM, it's not my job to like let you live.
Right.
It's your job to survive.
And there are also, player versus DM groups. If that's more your mentality, that's fine.
Yeah,
sure.
I personally, that's probably a negative side I have as a player because I'm so unattached to my characters because I've just been a game master for so long. Like, I was really fine for Stu to die. Like, I didn't want Stu to die or whatever. But even in like longer running games, I'm like, if they die, whatever. It's just life goes on.
We all have a backup plan, right? I have a backup plan.
I have a
Sweeney,
backup
you
character.
yeah.
I have a backup character.
Yeah,
I haven't
you need
used it.
backup characters to just keep turning into different races, right?
Well, here's the thing. We had to
No.
do a skill challenge last time I died. And
Yeah, it's very realistic that, like, if anybody else dies, like, you're going to have to, especially for Sweeney dies again, like, the skill challenge to bring you back is increasing because
the will to live.
the tether that ties him to the material plane is weakening every time you die.
Jay, I love you, but did you just use the word realistic to describe the race from dead ritual?
Of course.
It's super
You guys have never reincarnated
Wait.
somebody before?
But
I
it
want
adds,
to know what's your plan B?
Oh, well, definitely another Kemp. But this time I would be actually a really good one of the good Kemps. I'd probably be like a paladin.
Nice. What's
Yeah.
yours, Sweeney?
my plan would probably be a sorcerer.
Dope.
Yeah.
Wild magic is hilarious.
I would actually probably be the draconic heritage
You
sorcerer.
monster.
I
Just
know.
kidding. That's fine. And Izzy, what's yours?
What's your backup?
I'd be my dad,
Oh, Ron.
avenging his daughter.
Ron Buchanan.
Oh. He's like getting older. Oh, he's
So
drow though, right?
He's a drow elf.
So he could live for
They,
a
they
long
live.
time.
They live a very long.
That's why I was like, oh my god, my parents dead because my mom's human,
Oh.
but my dad's an elf. So I'm like, dad's still home. But,
I mean,
but
they
mom's
could be
pretty old.
dead
Yeah,
still.
I know.
but
They
hopefully-
could.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone you guys have ever loved is dead now.
We-
Yeah.
After
we've
two.
been
Life
gone
doesn't
for
discriminate from the sinners
5
and the
years?
saints.
Yeah.
How long have we been on the road together as the Velvet League? 5 years? 17, 22?
About 5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 years.
5 years for us.
Yeah.
Now 7 years for everyone else.
Yeah.
I was saving some Hamilton quotes for like my last like inspirational things. I was saving for the last battle, but then I was a gorilla, so I couldn't say any of them.
That's the same thing I run up when I'm a bear and I'm like,
And Hamilton is not a very gorilla-friendly show.
No, it's not.
no. No.
Awesome,
All right.
guys. Well, thank you for playing.
Woo! Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, we're sitting here with the producers, Jay Jones, the guy who just ran the adventure,
Hello.
Niels-Christian,
Hello.
Andrew Dickinger. Hello. Now I'm going to go one more time, and you're going to say a little bit more so people know your voices. Jay,
Hey, everybody. It's me, Jay.
Niels,
Hi, it's me, also Niels.
and Andrew.
And me, also Andrew.
This is Supernatural.
We
Guys,
are the Alsos.
You can hear us open for
Mary, won't you be my girl?
My Girl.
Bye, girl.
Man,
right.
what were you going to talk about? Dungeons and Dragons.
All right, take two. Welcome to the aftermath part of the aftermath.
Ooh, good intro.
This is the best intro. None of us are tired and sleep deprived from Gen Con.
Nope, none of us are.
This is Supernatural. And by that I mean ghostly and weird. Which brings us to our conversation about the Feywild.
Whoa, perfect transition.
The best segue.
That's where we went, right? That's where Gen Con is?
That's where Gen Con is. Gen Con is in the Feywild.
Yep,
Yeah.
that makes
It
sense.
feels like we were there for years. And when we came back,
Because, in fact, we were.
only 5, 6, some amount of time had
Yep,
passed.
see? Can't even tell how many days went by.
We literally just got off the plane.
Yes, we did.
Guys, this is season 11, and we had a terrific guest, Daniel Fernandez, on, who we recently brought into Partial Arc as part of the Roll the Seas podcast. Let's start by just quickly talking about how that led into Friday Night Quests.
Yeah, I mean, we knew Daniel, and Mike, you've known Daniel for a while, and
Yeah.
he's always been a talented DM, and when we were looking to add a new part of the show to Roll to Seas, the Dark Heresy portion, Mike, you had mentioned Daniel and kind of introduced us to him, and after hanging out and gaming with him for a while, he definitely seemed like a perfect fit for the show, and we did kind of like a trial run. It worked out great. And now he's GMing for Dark Heresy, which has been wonderful. And we were like, you know what, Daniel? You don't get a lot of opportunity to get in there and actually play around with a real character. So why not come in here and do some Friday Night Quests? And
Yeah.
I loved it.
It also helped a lot that he because it's hard to find somebody that would be willing to GM for us for Dark Heresy because you need to have at least some innate knowledge of the 40K universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's not like common. Like anyone can really kind of, not anyone, but like most people kind of have an idea of like, yeah, dragons and like wizards, and like you can kind of wrap standard storytelling with that theme around.
Yeah, it's easy for us to sell D&D to people
Well, it's like-
because they know fantasy.
It's like, have you
Exactly.
seen Lord of the Rings? Like, that's the general gist of it.
Yeah.
So it's just like...
While like the Grimdark universe is a little bit more specific.
Hey, have you seen Event Horizon? Okay, we're starting there.
And that's the entire universe.
I was like, that's the easy part.
Yeah, that part, that's the jumping off point.
But yeah, he was great this season. I loved his character design of just being a luchador, basically.
Yeah.
Of just coming in and being like, yeah, I'm this, but like, I'm also a wrestler. And it's like, well, that's awesome. It's like, I'm going to use grapple more than anyone has ever used grapple in the game of D&D. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, just to see somebody who's actually using barehanded fighting is like really refreshing.
Yeah,
And-
and not being a monk.
Yeah.
And I like to call this out surprisingly, like he had messaged me like several days before we were going to record and was like, hey, because we let some of our guests create their characters. Sometimes we give them pre-generated ones they pick.
Sometimes we work with them and like have like phone conversation or email chains or something. To, like,
Yeah.
because they don't know the game as well as we do.
But this time we gave Daniel a little bit more leniency, and he was like, hey,
Because he's run games in 5th edition, he knows
Right.
the system.
he was like, hey, is it all right if I do this one thing? It's like I can like wrestle giants or something like that, or like I can
what
wrestle
it is,
huge
it's
monsters.
It's an optional rule from the Dungeon Master's Guide, and it's about grappling, basically. Because there's some rules about it in the Player's Handbook, but there's a little more in the DMG. And he was basically asking, would it be okay, because he wanted to take the spell enlarge.
Yep.
/ reduce. I'm sure he could wrestle smaller things. But that basically means that you can wrestle something that is a one size category away from you. So size categories are, small for halflings, medium for humans, large for larger things, huge for like giants and stuff. And he's like, I want to be able to wrestle like anything, like if whatever happens. And then he sent you that message.
Yeah, and I was like, how does he know what this adventure is about? How did he know he's going to be wrestling giants this
He did
entire
not.
time? He didn't. It was just so great, though.
But I remember when I think we paused in between episodes to like, get food or whatever it was. And like, I leaned over to Daniel and I was like, you picked a pair character who can wrestle giants and we're fighting giants. He's like, yeah, that was weird.
It's pretty weird how that worked out.
But yeah, Daniel came on for our fun Feywild adventure. Now, tell us a little bit about how this adventure started. What was the opening seed? Did you know giants? Did you know Feywild? What was the first step?
I think with a lot of things we tend to start with like creatures, like what creatures are interesting and what can we kind of give their due.
And what can we fight?
Yeah, and what can you guys fight? That's also very important because as you get in higher levels, it's a lot less of like, oh, we could throw some gnolls in there. It's like, no, you can't really unless you're going to throw like 15 at you guys. And even then with action surge, Horace can kill all of them in like one turn.
I was going to say, that's one fireball away from their
Exactly. I mean, we had in the Adventures of Gormo
A lot of fireballs.
fireballs killing entire armies. So at a certain point, you're kind of capped out on what you can throw in there. And then I remember like we were flipping through and it was like, oh, giants. Like even when I've played D&D, it's like I've never really kind of run into a bunch of giants. It's like one, and that's about it.
Like even your adventure that you ran, the campaign before Friday Night Quest,
right,
sort of revolved around Fomorians. We didn't fight that many Fomorians. I think we fought one or two.
It was there were two
Fomorians.
Yeah.
I mean, the unique thing about them though is that they're like a really iconic giant to D&D.
Yeah.
Whereas like I like how as it developed, it was like the class system. That was a really cool idea.
That was the thing that was like kind of like the nail in the coffin of like there's something interesting here, because typically on a season, like if we're picking something, especially something specific, we want to delve into, and we're spending a lot of time in that world or with that species or creature or whatever. We want to like do something cool with it. So like just like with the Githyanki, like being in their village on like a face floating through the astral plane.
Yeah,
like that's cool.
What's unique about their culture?
Like what's unique and what can we dive into? And like reading the ordning, it was like, oh man, the ordning sounds great. Like this is a great environment for like a political, like uprising, revolutionary, like kind of story. You can put like old wars and stuff there, and like you guys have never been to the Feywild, so we can do whatever we want there.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was like, oh yeah, we're definitely doing giants, and I can totally destroy my voice by trying to do far too many accents in one time.
And it's funny that you mentioned that the ordning is appealing because of all that it offers, because 2 days before we recorded, and I told you this after we recorded.
This has happened a lot.
Okay, so there's a weird theme going on where we happen to hit on things at exactly the right moment. First of all, you did giants, and it happened to line up right around the time the BFG came out, and I asked you later, I was like, did you plan that? And you're like, oh yeah, the BFG comes out this summer.
I didn't, because I completely forgot that movie existed.
But then 2 days before we recorded, and you were like deep in it at that point, the story was written, Wizards of the Coast announced, I don't actually think Andrew and Nick, we've talked about this at all. Wizards of the Coast announced that their next module is about giants, specifically about a storm giant vanishing,
and
other giants rising up and defying the ordning.
Wait,
what?
Yes, exactly that. Exactly the idea.
So I mean, there's only one solution, which is the J is telepathically linked to their mind.
Yeah,
and it's funny because Wizards and
me
Nerdist,
and Chris Perkins are linked by one soul.
And Nerdist is doing a video series.
Yep, on giants as well.
With it's tied into that.
Yeah,
and it's Matt Mercer running the game, and their first episode came out like 4 days before the first episode of our. And I was like, wow, we are on the ball.
It was just so very strange.
Like we all thinking about giants right now.
Everybody's thinking about giants.
Well, it's the whole collective subconscious thing going on.
We've tapped into that so many times behind the scenes that we have not talked about on the show.
Well, the one thing I love about the giants though is that you can do so much fun stuff with scale.
Yeah.
Like the fact that a bird cage is they can just like kind of shimmy through if they just reduce themselves.
And you can have a griffin as a pet just hanging out in there.
I mean, that kind of stuff goes back to Gulliver's Travels. It's one of the oldest parts of science fiction and fantasy, is the idea that like, oh yeah, here's our world, but everything's huge and we feel like mice.
Yeah.
Or cats or whatever.
And for a DM, it really allows you to use the word massive, like as much as possible.
Gargantuan, maybe.
No,
guys.
Just exclusively the word massive.
Yeah, guys, if you want the extra bonus level drinking game of Friday Night Quests, take a drink every time Jay says the word massive. Enjoy your alcohol poisoning by halfway through episode 2.
Yeah, it's a really fun 4-hour. Basically, it's a 4-hour powered hour, basically, continuously.
Oh man, that was fun. That was like really fun editing it and be like, oh man.
Oh man, he really likes that word.
Because the problem is you can't say huge or large.
Exactly.
Those are
because it correlates to actual monster sizes.
Like large means it is like 10 feet by 10 feet, and huge means it's 15 by 15. Like that is a definition in D&D. It's like, well, what else is left? Massive's good. Massive's
and I don't want to just keep saying big.
Yeah.
You see a big sword in front of this big door, and man, look at how big it is.
And gargantuan, gargantuan is also a size category.
Yeah,
like, that's when it's like really, really big.
Thanks, D&D.
God damn it, D&D.
Because I don't want to get emails being like, actually, the class size of that is, unfortunately, it's huge.
Yeah, so we just avoided all the
by using the word massive on repeat.
It was really funny.
It's a good drinking game.
But the adventure. Now, you and I have talked about this a little bit. It went a different way than you thought it was going to.
Yeah.
Now, that's usually the case. But it feels like when you talked about it, you were saying, and we haven't talked about it in too much detail, you were saying that it went way differently than you thought.
It did. It went way, way differently. From a couple encounters. Like when the fire giant came down to fight you guys, and Daniel rolled like a natural 20 and scared him away. And I was like, I guess I have to make him run now? Because he scared him? Like, of course I do, I guess.
I mean, I kind of knew it was going to go off the rails when they decided to turn a griffin into a turtle, and then we're debating chucking it out the window. And it's like, you do realize that's a giant-sized window.
Oh, man. But definitely where, like, everything made a huge turn was when you guys just decided to turn into smoke and just fly away. And I was just like, oh, I didn't know that was a spell that they could do. And in full transparency, I don't like go and like review every spell before we play and be like, I know how I can counter that.
Even if you did with druids, how can you?
Yeah, how can I? There's so many.
For those who don't know, druids, clerics, and paladins can change their spells every day, and wizards can too. But we have a smaller list. We learn certain spells, and then we select spells every day. Druids and clerics and paladins have their entire spell catalog to choose from, and like a certain number of slots that they can fill, and that means that any given day, Izzy's list can entirely change. As she's just sitting there when we're on a bathroom break, just like shuffling through her cards and being like, I guess I'll choose these 7 different spells, 3 of which we've never heard of.
And I like to be surprised, but definitely when I'm like, all right, well, I've created a self-contained world. They must figure out so many ways to get out of this castle or get to where they think they're going. Maybe they'll run into someone they'll talk to about information. And then you guys were like, nah, I feel really good about that forest that we were nearby earlier. Let's just fly out of this castle where all of the story is and just bye.
Well, because our goal was the kids.
Yeah.
And we were just like, well, okay, here's all this political drama, but what if we didn't? What if we just didn't?
What if we didn't care about any of this? Bye.
Because it wasn't like, it was funny because we've had other political seasons. I think the Cal sovereignty was
it was a little bit.
In season 2, there was some political stuff, and
it was basically Aladdin. Let's be honest.
It was.
It wasn't too political,
but it was like an assassination attempt that we were
Yes.
trying to prevent. And in season 6, it was like this whole weird conspiracy of like who was not Prince Horace, King Darnson. No, the other one.
Go on.
King Marcus.
There you
marrying.
go.
I almost never call him the right name. I've definitely called him King Horace before.
He probably wouldn't like that.
I mean, Horace would, sure.
Yeah.
We, trying to figure out in season 6 what was up with his fiance and all that jazz. But with both of those, it was like, okay, with the assassinations, like we gotta, our lives are on the line, and we have to figure out, how to clear ourselves. We're figuring out who's actually responsible. In season 6, there was a huge emotional connection, and this season it was like, okay, they have this political stuff, and they don't know what we're talking about with the kids, and like Stu and Izzy were like super into finding those kids. I mean, we all were. We were all there to find the kids, but Stu especially, like he really wanted to make sure the kids were safe, which because he's like an honorable bad guy and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we're just gonna go then.
Oh, I understand what happened. Because you had a smoke power. You still could have gone to find the kids and encountered the rest of the story through the castle, but it was like, no.
It was ridiculous only because, like, not only could they turn into smoke, but they literally could move so fast that they'd outrun everything,
And here's the
including
thing.
giants. It's just
Sure.
like, what?
Sure, I could have been like, no, there's some magical spell on the window. You're screwed and you're stuck in this castle. But that's a real dick move.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Yeah. So it's just like, you gotta go through the thing that I made now.
Yeah, we've had that conversation before. If you're gonna be the kind of DM who's like, all right, I'm not gonna look at their spells, we're just gonna see what they do, then it's like when that happens, you're like, well, that sure is a spell they have.
You're just like, well, all these scenes are gone now, and this is how are we gonna get to this result? Let's see what happens.
You said there was an entire character who got
cut. There
cut.
was an entire character that cut completely, like an actual pivotal character. But we might see that character in the future. We might not. So
now, because we left a lot unsolved.
Oh yeah,
in Giants Land.
I love how you guys were like, oh, I think this might be an Iron Golem. Well, let's get out of here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that. I love that. You did just like you see that, you ignore it. You see that, you ignore it. You escape the castle. You go to this thing. You cause chaos at this tower, and then you just leave, and it's everything's like scrambling as to what's happening.
Because clearly the Fomorian was not the leader. No really mastermind would lock themselves up in their own...
right in front of a lava pit?
Yeah, in their own forge. Just like, I'm just going to clasp myself to the wall here.
Of course he would.
Yeah, totally.
BDSM, he's into that.
Just skipped and ignored all of that. But that's, again, just... They're like, we don't care.
But it's fine.
Save the
kids.
The
priority was the kids. And you guys had a magical wind power.
Yeah, that's true.
That power was
It's a good
great.
power.
Let's talk a little bit
I
about.
also loved the way that you guys fought the Fomorian by dragging him into the lava and holding
Yeah.
him there. That was pretty great.
I mean, as a DM, you make a decision, a conscious decision to say, I'm putting a murder pool right next to this enemy if I'm putting lava in here.
And because of that, he lasted, I think, a round and a half.
Yeah. Oh, very short amount of time.
Although I did realize, and this is my bad, disintegration doesn't do half damage. If you make the save, it just doesn't happen.
It just
but-
doesn't happen.
Oh well, guys.
It's okay. He was in lava.
Stop the presses.
Sometimes
We messed up a rule on the show.
It never happened, so
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought it up.
Super weird. I want to talk a little bit about Stu and Izzy.
Sure.
About that dynamic.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
Because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was something, we've always kind of joked and hinted at, like, romances on the show, and they've never kind of fully come to fruition on air. Like, there's been, like, dating, like, the second and Horace had a little bit of tit for tat, but it was kind of like at the end of an adventure.
Yeah.
We never got to see it, like, develop over a story. There were, like, some moments with Sweeney with some characters. There were some moments with Horace. There's some moments even with some of our guests as well.
But they're always very unfulfilled. I think, actually, Fim in season 3 was the closest. He
Exactly.
and Horace. But since then, I mean, it's been, 7-8 seasons. We haven't touched it. Like, we
Not
haven't
really.
really completed a story arc of romance.
And out of all the characters who were having those romances, it seemed like Izzy was, she would have like some crushes in some. Like I remember when Matt Cain was a guest, she seemed to have like a little bit of a crush when she first met him when he came to the
A little
town.
bit, yeah.
And then like that kind of went away. But this was great to see,
It's almost like we
Izzy-
all got really distracted in the middle of season 9.
Yeah, kind
like
of.
Something pulled the entire focus
Pulled a
of that
lot of
season
focus.
from everything that was planned.
But yeah, so that was great to have the guest and Izzy to have like kind of a romance develop over the whole season. It was a lot of fun.
I actually think that came about because I'd been talking to Daniel and joking about the same thing and being like, oh yeah, anytime, like before we record or at the end of a session, Kelly's always like, all right, next time Izzy's totally gonna make out with someone, and then she just completely forgets about it, or other things come up when we actually start recording and the gameplay begins. It's just like, yeah, other things pull our focus. We're not a super heavy romance show.
True.
But then Daniel was like, oh, well, what if I just hit on her?
What if I just romanced?
And then I think Sweeney was just like, oh, I don't know this person's hitting on my surrogate sister. I don't like that. I'm just going to salt his game.
That's true. You guys did have a bit of a competition going on. And just because the whole like wizard, like, ooh, look what I can do. Ooh, look what I can do better.
Yeah, Sweeney's fallen into some bad habits of being an asshole.
He's gotten like such a better person after killing his former master.
Well,
He's become just a greater human being.
You'd think dying twice would teach you something, but
It teaches him to carry healing potions.
It did that.
I don't think that's quite the
I have
message.
And to remind Izzy
healing
that-
potions, guys. By the way, they're here
On my
with
belt.
me, on my belt. Like, if
Pour
I'm
them
down,
into my
pour
mouth.
it in my mouth. That was great. I like that.
Easy.
That was a lot of fun.
Oh man, and that whole Griffin bit, that was just
Yeah, we
just
got
a
to
lot
come
of
back
fun.
to that because that was... as I was editing, I was just like, this is going to be about 20 minutes of just nonsense. And I knew how it ended. And I was just like, oh my God, this
goes absolutely
spent
nowhere.
so long on this
Very long.
very failed plan.
Like there are children chained up somewhere, and we're like, we have got to figure out how to get this Griffin out of here.
Mike, you call it a plan, but I don't think there's really any plan involved.
I think it was funny that they were like, well, we gave it a try. It's like, we really could have tried a lot harder.
Oh yeah.
Like, if we'd really had put all of our minds to it, we really could have figured it out. But no.
Unfortunately so.
Well, that almost got us to go on foot, except not at all.
It almost did.
Izzy was just like, all right, it'll be fine.
Hey, we'll turn to smoke.
Whee!
Just change the entire course of this adventure.
Yeah, and then we just bailed on the Feywild, and we're back, and it's 2 years later.
Yeah.
And the second is no longer a part of the party.
And that was definitely intentional. I will say the 2-year change, we knew there would be a time change going into the Feywild.
Yeah, that's actually part of the flavor, and I think in the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide, it suggests that you can roll for it.
You can roll for it.
You can just be
This
like,
was like an intentional time
because
amount.
it's not just time moves slower in the Feywild. It really does change depending on when you enter and when you leave. It can be more or less random. Sometimes time moves faster here. It's kind of like Narnia, where it's not just a set like, oh, this number of hours equals this amount of time. In the real world, if I'm messing up Narnia, it's because I haven't read those books in forever.
It's like Inception.
It's not like Inception because it's a very specific rule in Inception. They're very clear
Inception's like
about
a
it.
math equation.
Yeah. But you guys came in you didn't roll for it randomly, obviously,
Right.
because you had to plan where we were going afterwards. But you came in with your sort of 2-year agenda.
Yeah. And it's because, I mean, this is essentially going into our second year, and you guys had followed a lot of threads to some big conclusions, but, you know, with a kind of second year, as if you were to kick off another season of like a show or something, we want to kind of reset the board in certain places, and it gives us a lot more to play with, especially for you guys, the relationships that you built and where they are when you just cut you out from being 2 years on the table to not being there.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time filling in the edges of the map as sort of the first year went on, and then coming back and being like, well, we don't know what the status is of anything that we've seen so far.
Hey, well, good news. You came back and the whole world wasn't on fire.
That's good.
True.
So far.
I'm sure everything's fine.
Yeah, I'm sure
nothing's changed anywhere.
I'm sure that crisis we were trying to solve didn't get 2 years worse.
I think everyone just took a 2-year nap and just waited.
They're like, guys, I don't know why, but I'm feeling like taking a break.
Everyone was just sort of standing in place. I have no quests to offer you at this time.
There are no quests available. There are no quests available.
And then the second is off on her own.
She's doing something maybe somewhere.
We'll see what happens there.
We killed her off screen. She's Loki now. No.
Sad.
We'll find out what happened to the second eventually.
And there's still a whole bunch we don't know about her organization.
A whole lot you don't know.
There's like a third person.
There is.
Into their little sleeper cell. What's the term for their cell? Basically, they're
cells.
They're a little organization.
There's a first, a second, and a third. You guys at this point have only met a first and a second.
And there was something about a botanist that we kind of know was relating to the flowers, probably.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, there's a lot of dangling plot threads from seasons 9 and 10 that have not really been tied off.
Well, luckily we've got an entire year to find out.
Yeah, guys, we're heading into season 12, heading towards Izzy's parents.
Yeah, gonna go down and actually finally meet the family and see where she grew up, which should be very interesting, especially for Izzy's character.
Yeah, that'll be weird.
I can imagine that conversation of introducing Horace and Sweeney.
I'm sure it'll go really well.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure they won't embarrass her at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
Most likely.
I have a plan.
And again, I'm sure everything there is fine.
Yeah.
The entire adventure is going to be you guys catching up on old war stories.
Yeah.
Flipping through Izzy's baby pictures.
It's going to be a clip show.
It's like
It's going to be a clip show season.
Aw, we ran out of money, guys.
We ran out of money, clip show time.
Just a lovely weekend vacation at Izzy's.
Yeah.
Family dinners and nothing.
Skill check, don't burn the chicken.
Oh, man.
Oh, you burned the chicken. Get out.
Get out of here.
Take 2 points of bitterness damage.
Final encounter, baking the pie.
Oh,
Don't heat it for too long. Don't heat it for too little.
Well, with all that to look forward to, guys, we'll see you
I'm sure your anticipation is built to a maximum level.
We'll see you in season 12.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. This brings an end to our adventure with Daniel, but next week brings part 1 of season 12, where we'll be joined by returning guest Ysabel Gabriel. Ysabel is best known for her work on The Legend of Korra as Asami and Falling Skies as Lords, and she recently appeared in the independent film Sleight, as in Sleight of Hand, which showed at Sundance this year. Ysabel previously joined us for Season 5 as the Wood Elf Warlock Sereni Briarfell, and we are tremendously excited to have her back on the show. Look forward to that episode next Friday. Special thanks again to Daniel Fernandez for joining us on the show. We had a fantastic time playing with him, and of course you can hear him twice a month on the Roll to Seize podcast. This past Wednesday marked the release of Part 2 of his most recent Dark Heresy campaign, where myself and Andrew Dickinger play ourselves as we go on adventures in the grimdark world of Warhammer 40k. You can also follow Daniel on Twitter at LOTR_Dan. Photos and character art can be found in the show notes on partialarc.com. And while you're there, why not check out some of our other podcasts, including Because Comics, where Mike Christensen and I talk about the weird and wacky stories of comic books. If you have any questions about the show, you can email us at FridayNightQuests@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr, all under the handle Partial Arc. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the battlefield.
Yeah, I'm gonna loot the body.
So, how much experience do we get?
Well, now we have a skeleton army, so that's pretty neat.